On this special day, we decided to get out of the regular schedule and publish a special video for the occasion. As we all know, women had an inferior role in almost any important aspect of life throughout history. And although the status of women differed immensely by region, the rise of Christianity helped to constrain patriarchy and higher rates of definitive celibacy at its most extreme level. Today, we will take a look at the top 3 similarities and differences in the status of women between Western and Eastern medieval Europe. The Western Church instituted marriage laws and practices that undermined large kinship groups. From as early as the 4th century, the Church was completely against any practice that enlarged the family, like adoption, polygamy, taking concubines, divorce, and remarriage. The Church also severely discouraged and prohibited consanguineous marriages, a marriage pattern that has constituted a means to maintain clans, and thus their power, throughout history. The Church also forbade marriages in which the bride did not clearly agree to the union, but this was mostly theoretical, since women didn't really express any opinion in that matter and followed their parents' will. With that being said, here is the first difference, which is one of the main differences between the East and the West, and that is the form of Christianity. Western Europe is represented by the Catholic Church, while Eastern Europe, by the Eastern Orthodox Church. The main difference between the two is the papal primacy. While in the West the form of political power was theocracy, the Church was the highest institution. In the East the political power was caesaropapism, where the social and political power was superior to the spiritual authority of the Church. Under the feudal system of the Middle Ages, women had little or no chance of attaining education. Education was rare for serfs and peasants in general, and being a woman made it impossible for a girl from a peasant background to learn reading and writing. Girls of upper class were given benefits of education in a few cases. There were certain obligations for women of nobility, which required them to be literate. However, the course of education for women was very limited, and it was controlled by the Church. The general feeling was that women were secondary and they needed to serve and remain under protection of men. Whatever education a woman could attain was designed to help her in becoming a good wife and mother in future. The most common position that required education and gave benefits of women was a nun. Abbesses could become important figures in their own right, often ruling over monasteries of both men and women, and holding significant lands and power. In Eastern Europe, however, there were many differences with specific regional characteristics. In the Byzantine Empire, Bulgarian Empire and Kievan Rus, the majority of women were well educated and had a higher social status than in Western Europe. Education was common even among peasants, and was given by the village priest. Usually, a room in the church was specifically used as a classroom. A famous example of educated Eastern European woman is Anna Komnena, who is considered as the first female historian. In medieval feudal society, female landowners had to depend on men, either family members or hired retainers, to fulfill the military service owed to their lord. Married women were also legally considered subordinate to their husbands, and a woman's land automatically became the property of her husband on marriage. Married women were not legally entitled to own landed property until the passing of the Married Women's Property Act in 1870 and the Married Women's Property Rights Act in 1882. However, single and widowed women were able to buy and sell land and participate in the world of business. Wealthy women would also have spent some of their money on expensive furnishings, clothes and books. Widows received income from their dower money or land to which they were entitled after the death of their husband. Specific estates were sometimes identified for dower in the negotiations preceding the marriage. In Eastern Europe, equality in family relations and the right to common property after marriage were recognized by law with the Ekloga, issued in Constantinople in 726 and Slavonic Ekloga in Bulgaria in the 9th century. There is a recorded case from the First Bulgarian Empire, during the reign of Tsar Peter I, of widow sued the sister of her late husband, who tried to take the land under the assumption that she is the sister of the late owner, but the widow won the case because of the ecloga. Thank you for watching. Don't forget to subscribe and ring the bell to be
So I've got my essay written, and I've been working on it for about a week. So now I'm going to show you how I use Grammarly to... On the fringes of the European continent lies a group with one of the most interesting histories in all of Europe. Often satirized here in the Western world, both historically and in the present, as dull yet innovative, uncoordinated but powerful when united. As many people already know, the English word slave actually derives from the word Slav, a reference to the Slavic people and their perilous position for well into the second millennia, as Slavs were often downtrodden by the Byzantines, Ottomans, Norse Vikings, Mongols, and other aggressors in and around Europe, and were very nearly stamped out of existence several times in the past. Fast forward to today, and the Slavs would be unrecognizable by their early forefathers, far surpassing their former rivals in terms of economic output, population, and territorial expansion, with around 40% of Europe's population currently belonging to the various Slavic nations today. So how on earth did the Slavic peoples go from teetering on the brink of extinction to one of the most powerful and influential people groups in Europe and the entire world? Today we're going to be looking at the origin and history of the many Slavic peoples, along with their rise to prominence as a major European and global power, and the many nations that make up this people group. Now, the region of Eastern Europe is not completely synonymous with the Slavic world, although nearly all of the nations in Eastern Europe are Slavic and vice versa, and it is quite difficult to quantify the exact number of Slavic nations in the world today, as there are countless subgroups within these various countries. For instance, the country of Poland today is seen as very ethnically homogeneous by many outsiders. However, within the nation of Poland lies a few other Slavic groups, such as the Kashubians, sometimes known as the Pomeranians, located in the north of Poland, or the Silesians in the south, although it is debatable whether Silesian is a dialect of Polish or a separate language entirely. However, by far the largest and most well-known Slavic nation would without a doubt be the Russian people, who have had possibly the most shocking metamorphosis of any group on the planet. From a historical standpoint on just how massively the Russians have expanded their territory, looking at a map of Eurasia 500 years ago, this was not the Russian homeland. This was the Russian homeland, a meager fraction of its current self, not even 10% of the Russian Federation today. The birth of the Russians and other East Slavic nations, such as Belarus and Ukraine, first began in the 9th century AD with the foundation of the Kievan Rus, a federation of Slavic tribes consisting mostly of territories in the modern-day countries of Belarus, Ukraine, and northwestern Russia, with the capital located in Kiev. Being on the borderlands of the continent of Europe, these Slavic peoples, specifically Russians, have bore the brunt of almost all invasions and conquests originating from the Far East, with various degrees of success. As mentioned earlier, the Mongol invasion of Kievan Rus in the 13th century effectively destroyed all forms of independent governance for the Eastern Slavs and Rus, with the people becoming a tributary of the Mongol Empire for nearly 2 centuries. After the collapse of the Golden Horde, which was a successor state of the Mongols in northern Eurasia, the Eastern Slavs united with the Novgorod Republic in the north to create the Grand Principality of Moscow. Meanwhile, to the west, the Polish had managed to stave off the Mongols, and after the last of the Mongol hordes in the west had been absorbed by the Ottomans or the Russians, the Poles began to rise in prominence, allying themselves with the Lithuanians to form the Polish-Lithuanian Commonwealth, a truly massive territory made up of many different nationalities and religions, and thus was comparable to such an empire like Austria-Hungary, which was also a confederation between 2 European powers. Also, it's important to note that the Lithuanians, along with Latvians, are actually a Baltic people group and are generally considered to be distinct from Slavic peoples. However, the Baltic and Slavic language families are closely related and hence are sometimes grouped together for convenience sake. The Commonwealth would eventually lose power and split up, however, being annexed by the rapidly expanding Russian Empire, who had already begun to expand east in an ironic and dramatic reversal of the hundreds of years of subjugation at the hands of the Mongolic and Turkic tribes of North Asia. In only a century, the Russian Tsardom had conquered their former masters in the east, including the Tartars, Mongols, and many other native peoples of Siberia who they had never been in conflict with before. Historians draw many parallels to the Russian conquest of Siberia and the conquest of the Americas by various Western European powers, with both being detrimental to the native population of the regions, both by the spread of new diseases, active warfare, and colonial subjugation. The closest approximation to Christopher Columbus for the Russians would probably be Yermak Timofeyevich, also known as Cossack Yermak, who led the Russian expeditions to the east, battling the Khanate of Sibir and founding Russian settlements along the way. Following the trailblazing Cossacks streamed hundreds of thousands of Slavic settlers from Russia, Ukraine, and other nations of the Russian Empire, replacing many of the native Siberian peoples, although a good portion of Siberia today still retains their indigenous culture and language. Therefore, it can be argued that the modern nation of Russia itself is in a way a type of settler state, similar to the United States, seeing how they spread out across an incredibly vast country, the largest in the world as a matter of fact, although the Russian settlers were treated as an integral part of the empire rather than colonists, leading to the high degree of integration when compared to other European empires. Central Asia and the Caucasus was also conquered by the Russians in the 1800s, although their populations were never wiped out in the same manner as the Siberians, and they weren't absorbed into Russia proper, being administered later as autonomous republics in the Soviet Union. The Eastern Slavic nations consisting of Belarus, Russia, and Ukraine, and Western Slavic nations consisting of the Czech, Polish, and Slovaks are for the most part completely contiguous, although the Southern Slavic nations are a bit of a conundrum, seeing how they're separated from the larger Slavic homeland. It was around the 6th century AD that Slavic peoples from Ukraine migrated south into the Balkans, which at the time was under the rule of the Byzantines, and the Slavs gradually assimilated the previous people of the Balkans, including the Dalmatians and Thracians. They are comparatively far more divided when compared to other Slavic groups, with there being at least 7 Slavic nationalities in the Balkans, although recently all but Bulgaria were united under the Socialist Federal Republic of Yugoslavia, which literally translates to South Slavia. The Bosniak, Croatian, Montenegrin, and Serbian people effectively all speak dialects of the same language classified as Serbo-Croatian, and they're considered separate languages only for political reasons, as most can easily understand each other. The large degree of ethnic separatism following the dissolution of Yugoslavia has led to massive political and ethnic conflict in the region and has coined the term Balkanization, meaning political devolution over ethnic, linguistic, or religious distinctions. Similarly, Bulgarians and Macedonians speak very similar dialects of what many classify as the same language, although for ethnic and political disputes the two are considered to be separate languages and people. Two groups that are commonly mistaken to be Slavic are the Romanians and Hungarians in southeastern Europe, who are of Italic and Uralic extraction linguistically, an understandable misconception that arises due to their proximity and immersion in the Slavic world of Eastern Europe. Additionally, although many Ashkenazi Jews from Eastern and Central Europe may speak the Slavic languages of their home countries, as is the case for Russian, Ukrainian, and Polish Jews, the majority of their population does not identify as Slavic, but rather as their own ethno-linguistic population, and Slavic peoples also see them as such. So an Eastern European Jew could very well be of Russian or another Slavic nationality, although ethnically and culturally they are very distinct. Now, the Macedonians and Bulgarians are an interesting bunch. Ask anyone from the country of Greece and they will insist that Macedonians are not the successors of the ancient Hellenistic Macedonian people whose ranks included the likes of Alexander the Great and Aristotle. Similarly, the original Bulgar language and people were Turkic in nature, hailing from North Asia or modern Russia. However, were assimilated by the text-to-speech program. That video was and hence now only full a small proportion of the good information. Gene pool and vocabulary is from the ethnic Bulgars. This is similar to how the Hungarians and Turks speak an Uralic and Turkic language respectively, although genetically they are far more similar to Central European and Middle Eastern populations respectively. The Slavic people practice a wide variety of religious faiths, with the majority practicing Eastern Orthodox, mostly in the east, stretching from the Russians to the Serbians, while the western half, including the Poles to the Croatians, are traditionally Catholic, although the Czech Republic is notable for being the most irreligious country in the world, with over 70% of the population identifying as atheists. And lastly, there are also Islamic Slavic groups, including the Bosniaks, Pomaks, and Torbesh, although many of these Islamic Slavs had fled to Turkey following the dissolution of the Ottoman Empire and subsequent expulsion of Islamic and Turkic groups from the Balkans. Either way, it truly is astounding how the Slavic peoples, who were effectively the historic cannon fodder of Europe, managed to not only survive throughout the millennia, but actually managed to overthrow their former conquerors, and in the case of the Russians, completely turn the tables, dominating their Eurasian landmass. From the old Kievan Rus to the Polish-Lithuanian Commonwealth, to the Soviet Union, and now the many Slavic nations of Europe, Asia, and the global diaspora, the Slavic peoples have definitely made their mark on history, and during this period of mass politicization and polarization, it's important to learn who the historic and modern Slavic people are. Go ahead and let me know your thoughts on the Slavic peoples and languages, and it would be very interesting to hypothesize what a unified Slavic country would look like, but that currently seems improbable with the massive tensions and conflicts arising in the region. As always, thanks for watching, everyone. This has been Mason, and I'll see you next time.
Small towns across America have been left behind in
So I've got my essay written, and I've been working on it for about a week. So now I'm going to show you how I use Grammarly to edit.
one of the things that could be thrown in is I have I have recently learned that the true Russian alphabet is based off of the Greek alphabet. Cyrillic. It's called. Yeah. Russian Cyrillic is derived from the Greek uncial or uncial script, augmented by letters from older. Wow. Glagolitic alphabet. They added a few letters for other sounds that weren't in Greek. Which isn't so bad. Because I discovered that we're doing a choir song semester called Oche Nash, which is it is presented to us in more than one language. Neither of them are English. I'm guessing that it is just is that it? It is essentially, hey, there's the Cyrillic alphabet. Hey, we'll translate it over. It still won't make any sense. This is the probably the spoken translation. The spoken, It's like when you, even if you type it into just Google Translate, that is what it looks like. The English translation is just Our Father. So it is probably using the English alphabet to transcribe the phonetic pronunciation, using a bit more of a Latin origin, is then actually translated. They call it a transliteration. So it's not. Yeah, it seems to be very similar. Pinyin is a romanization of the pronunciation of Chinese. What is the Oh, when you type in transliteration, it is just... It is the romanization... Okay. The romanization of Cyrillic is the process of converting text written in Cyrillic script into the Latin alphabetic script, or a system for such conversion. It was first introduced in 1898. Is based on a Latin alphabet used in Serbo-Croatian, which we just watched a video on, which each letter corresponds to a Cyrillic letter in Bosnian, Montenegrin, and Serbian official standards, usually based on the earlier Czech alphabet.
QuickBooks is your small business's new recipe to success. Intuit QuickBooks helps.
Yeah. Well, you should look at this page. If you want to talk about Tetris, that's what this stuff looks like. The Cyrillic... That's worth a copy and paste over. The Cyrillic letter X... I guess it's probably called something else. But it's an X. Represents the sound of the CH is in Bach. So the K is romanized into what looks like the letter H in Serbo-Croatian. But in German-speaking countries, it's written as the native digraph ch, ch. That's cool. It is often adapted to serve as a phonetic alphabet. That makes sense. Just it's hard to read symbols when you have no idea what they mean. It has a full translation over. What is that sound? I want Oche Nash. Is that... nope, that's Pater Noster. Alright. Yeah. This is not horribly off. There. I just said it Latin. actually lines. Очень дашь, шучу на небеска, да святся, имя Твое, да придет царствие Твое, да будет воля Твоя. Pleb. Дай нам на Satan. HLEB. X I E something. We're doing it through Choir, so we're just phonetically reading things pretty much. Now that I have a chart full of like weird things pulled up, I'm wondering if we're pronouncing one horrible word right. Russian. Russian isn't the like on the bottom of my list of things that I would consider learning. Schleb. That's the pie. That's an L. Matches with the ch sound. Yeah, and I don't have the patience for Spanish. Or rather, my high school experience has ruined my patience for Spanish. Is more accurate. Yeah, is
That's why we've been investing billions
okay.
to bring our award-winning 5G network to small towns just like yours. And to celebrate, we're introducing our hometown
Then that thing is a B, and it is called.
Switch today.
Yeah. It is entirely possible that we've been saying that word wrong the whole time. It's yeah, it is. This spelling. We read it transliterated as this. But we have pronounced it with like a P sound, like a pleb. I don't. It doesn't matter because we actually put the piece aside today, and we're gonna do it later. But hey, there's a spelling. I do not like what that looks like. Uh-oh. Gleb. Gleb. And apparently it's a name. I don't know how it's a name. What was the translation? Gleb translates. Just you really just yeah, you really just forget about it. Web. I'm confused. Apparently, the masculine translation of the word that I just tried to pronounce is bread. That whole messed up hieroglyphic in there. Bread. This website also says Tommy. Sure enough, it does. Don't know why. The world is bread called Tommy. Oh my god. Okay. In Britain, they call the piece of bread on the end of the loaf Tommy. Okay. I don't know why. That that was absolutely useless for me to have needed to find out, but if you type in if you type in the word, it says it wants to give you recipes, and it'll correct when I type the word into my search. Wanted to fill in with recipes because the word finishes with bread. And that's
You booked a spacious Virgo summer home with a
is bizarre.
epic cannonballs, but the thing they'll remember forever.
gonna get a lot of weird autocorrect fillings from now on. There's almost something I had. Oh. Since the Russian language is based off the Greek-style alphabet that made its way from even more Central Eastern European countries. The ruins, any kind of ruined or historical features and so on and so forth could all be Hellenistic themed for the continent. Yeah, that seems more than likely. Yeah, it seems to be one of those places that has, like, that kind of history going on. rivers, tossing a couple lakes in there, and then you have a territorial conflict. Twice. Always a good time when you fight wars based off of water supply. I do not know that I will still be here. I gotta get up in 8 hours. I have no issue. I don't have any issues timing-wise for the next while, so it's not... This time slot of my week is open anyway, so I might as well do something enjoyable with it.